Good morning, good afternoon. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Mainly it's just my voice today, but I am down here at the bottom right side of your corner. I didn't want to, do my hair today, so I made myself extremely small. But obviously, you're not here to see how goofy I look. You're here for lecture 3.2. Guys, I'm going to kind of go through this one. This one is absolutely essential for you to listen to know, to get the basic understanding of. Why? Because I would say 3.2 also will come back to play in Unit 5 when we talk about agriculture. Super, super, super important. I can't stress that enough. So, pause it where you need to, take as much time as you need to, do whatever. We're actually going to get through slides 1 through 50 right now. I scared a lot of you. Just know most of that is actually a pre-quiz. Scared you again. No, it's mainly just a lot of information that you should already know in regards to environmental science, and we'll kind of go through, we won't go through it because we never have enough time in environmental science, but it's mainly for you to just recap on things you should know from past classes, mainly earlier chemistry and biology classes. So we're not going to spend any time on it, but just, ladies and gentlemen, look at, I guess, the introduction, this slide, but we're going to really study ecology, right? Nature. Nature's interaction and nature's systems. The biological organisms on this planet, how they interact, what do they need, what do they do, what are their characteristics, especially on a systems level, because remember, environmental science is all about systems levels. So we're really going to talk about those relationships. At the core of the study of ecology is a question about how matter and energy are exchanged between organisms and their surroundings. So this slide right here sums up what you're going to be learning in the future. This is a big, lecture or slide presentation. So, this is the main summed up version of it. Now, guys, I'm not going to go through these. You should know these from past classes. So I'm really going to just fly. I'm not even going to discuss them. What I highly recommend that you do is if you do need a recap on, matter and energy, what they are, please go through these and actually look at them. And as you can see, I kind of have a mock quiz. But then look, I give you the answers, right? So do go through them. There is quite a bit. I'm going to fly through them now. There's even some that if you don't quite understand, I explain it right here in the next slide. So kind of for you, look at me. I was kind of a chemistry teacher there for a moment. I do know chemistry, just probably not nearly as well as Miss Shweta. Of course, she is phenomenal, but I know enough to get me through environmental science and the world around us. So please go through these. I'm not going to go through them all, and this is mainly for you. Okay. I think we'll get through them. Oh, right there, I passed it too far. Okay, here's where kind of we start. We are talking about, you should already know the different types of energy. You should know this, but we'll kind of re-stress this part because it is kind of important. But energy is really just the ability to do work, right? And we have really two main types of energy. And one is kind of broken down further into chemical energy, but we have kinetic energy, energy in moving objects, right? Once you kind of push a ball, let's say, it's going at you give it energy, and then it's using that force and momentum to kind of give it energy. Potential is stored energy. Think of, a spring. You bring back the spring, well, it's then potential energy because it's holding on to that power, and then once you let it go, that power leaves. A lot of the energy we're going to talk about in this unit is potential energy. That's really mainly what we talk about in environmental science. Why? Because we kind of go down into chemical energy, which is we're going to be talking about fossil fuels. We're going to talk about fuel that fuels animals, you and I, right? We are chemical potential energy. Chemical energy. Let me explain that. Chemical energy is just stored in food or fossil fuels, right? So you have chemical energy. Whenever you move or walk, that is chemical potential energy. Why? It's stored in your fat cells or muscle cells. You eat the food you eat. You ingest it, and then it gets stored in your body, and then you're able to use it as work, right? That's potential chemical energy. Fossil fuels, coal, let's say we go burn some coal, that is stored potential chemical energy as well. So once again, we will be talking about these quite a bit. And then we definitely will be bringing up heat energy, right? Energy that can be transferred between objects of different temperature, right? Heat is easily transferred. This is key, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe this slide is one of the most important, just because it really talks about what we'll kind of get into in the future, and food chains and food webs, and how this energy transfers from one organism to the next, and thus, to humans when we use it as different types of energy as well. So do know it. Yeah, like I said, I can't stress this lecture enough, because it really, we'll talk about here, we'll talk about in our agriculture unit, we'll talk about in our energy unit. So very key. I hope you're listening. I hope you're actually listening to this. Here's just an example. So potential energy is stored, right? The girl is holding the ball, is stored, then gravity, then once it leaves, then potential energy transforms into kinetic energy, because then it's just force pulling the ball. So an easy graphic to kind of help you remember, distinguish between those two. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we really will be talking about potential chemical energy in this class, and heat as well. Okay. Thermodynamics. Know this. It's going to be on a quiz. Energy must be supplied from the sun to keep biological processes running, because as it flows through the various biological processes, it becomes dissipated. Key. Now, I'll explain that. Don't worry, I'll explain that a little bit more so it's easy to understand. I'll actually show you graphics on this process. But do know these different laws of thermodynamics, because they're key to environmental science. First law of thermodynamics: energy is neither created nor destroyed. Rule number 1: you cannot create nor destroy energy. The universe, it has the energy it has. It's never going to lose it. It's never going to create more of it. Now, yes, suns maybe have these nuclear processes, fission and fusion going on, but it's still energy that has transferred into them, then they explode. So it's this ongoing energy. Now, I could go into, I love space science. I love astronomy, cosmology, right? I love this stuff. So I could talk hours on this, but, and you'll kind of see this in the video of entropy, but there is the same amount of energy and matter within the universe that there always has been, or at least our understanding as of right now, right? The universe is expanding, but we're not losing energy. It's just becoming broken up more and more and more through entropy, and we'll talk about that. So first law of thermodynamics: energy is neither created nor destroyed. Second law of thermodynamics: with each successive energy transfer, less energy is available to perform work due to entropy. Disorder increases. Now, don't worry, I'll really get into this part. But really what this is saying is, every time you transfer energy from one object or one organism to another, they receive less energy than is being transferred. Why? Because you have entropy, or loss of heat energy, or respiration. Let's say I eat a cheeseburger, right? So let's say we have a certain amount of energy in that cheeseburger. I eat it. Is my body going to take in all that 100% energy? No, unfortunately. I only take in about 10% of it. 90% of it is lost just to digestive processes. Eating, grabbing that burger. I'm losing energy as I'm taking it in. So it's not a perfect transfer of energy. That's second law of thermodynamics. And here's a little department entry. Everything goes to chaos kind of thing, or gets broken down. This graphic is a little bit confusing, but I feel like you kind of view it going from right to left in a way, or this graphic just kind of has entropy going, high entropy going to low entropy, but I'll explain it. A measurement of the degree of randomness of energy in a system. That is energy. The amount of randomness or disorder within a system. The lower the entropy, the more ordered and less random it is, and vice versa, right? So you can kind of think of low entropy as a ball, but then all those molecules in the ball start to break apart. You get higher and higher entropy. It's higher disorder, more moving parts to it. Another example, a gallon of gas, right? Prepared food, sunlight have low entropy, right? They are direct energy sources. Then prepared food, then you eat it, but then those molecules start getting broken down in your body, right? Heat energy is lost, so then it becomes a higher entropy. I actually attached this video right here, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely watch it. It's a video on entropy. I don't expect you to fully understand the whole process. the next coming slides, we'll kind of talk about what you have to know about it, but it's key to understanding this process, right? So low entropy is more order. Sorry, let me start over again. Low entropy means more order. There's more things are less broken down. High entropy is when things start to break down. You have more chaos or more randomness to the order of things. And this is in regards to energy, right? Whether energy comes in, like, we can kind of think of, okay, so like let's use the first example, a gallon of gas. A gallon of gas is a gallon of gas is a very low entropy, right? It's all the energy in that gallon of gas. Well, then you pour it into your car. Well, then your car starts burning it. That energy starts getting lost to heat. Some of it goes to moving the car. It starts breaking down, and that becomes more high entropy. Okay. Now, ultimately, most organisms depend on the sun for the energy needed to carry out life processes. We're really going to stress on this. Everything, guys, everything on this planet, well, not everything, but for this class, everything is brought to you by the sun. Think about it. All the fossil fuels that you can think of brought to you by the sun. Now, even wind energy, right? Wind energy. Well, what gets wind moving? Solar energy, right? What grows plants? Solar energy, right? And what needs plants to survive? We do, other animals do, right? So everything can really be associated to the sun, gives all life on this planet and all energy on this planet. Now, there are a very few ancient organisms that, get their energy from the earth, because the earth has its core. But you know what? Wink, wink, we're really not going to talk about those, okay? So do know there are a few organisms that do get their energy from other sources, not the sun, more from the earth, but very few. The ones we're going to really be discussing in this class are the ones that get all their energy from the sun, okay? Energy from the sun. Solar energy is essential for two reasons. First off, warmth. Most organisms can exist only in the relatively narrow temperature range, right? It's also, if you know space science, it's called the Goldilocks zone. We're not too hot, we're not boiling and frying, off the planet, and we're not too cold where we're, getting frozen to death, right? We're in this perfect zone, so the sun gives us just enough warmth to keep us alive. And then two, photosynthesis in plants, right? That's what starts off the whole food chain. If we didn't have the sun, none of us would be here. We need plants to survive. Even if you're a full 100% carnivore, you eat tons of cows and poor pigs and chickens, they need plants, right? So it's this ongoing transfer of energy, right? So in regards to plants, radiant energy is transformed into useful, high-quality chemical energy in the bonds of organic molecules. All life on Earth depends on photosynthesis, right? We'll get into that a little bit more as well. And once again, the sun is, just going on this, the sun is absolutely invaluable to us right now, to life on this planet. Of all solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface, about 10% is ultraviolet, 45% is visible, and 45% is infrared. Most of energy is absorbed by land or water or reflected back into space. So do know that. And only about 1 to 2% of the sunlight falling on the planet is actually captured by plants. So just, the life on this planet is really using just a small fraction of what actual sunlight reaches Earth. You should know this, and I'm sure you've learned this in a biology course, but you should know photosynthesis, right? Occurs in organelles called chloroplasts within plant cells. So really you take 6 molecules of H2O, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, plus solar energy, and then really what you get is this compound of starches and sugars, right? You should know this. In regards to remembering this actual formula, I don't want to scare you. If for those of you who are taking the AP exam, the official AP exam, I would highly recommend kind of understanding this to a bit more degree. For my final exam, it won't be on there. There's just too much to learn that I'll just tell you right now, I won't put that formula. But you should at least know that plants need water, carbon dioxide, and solar energy, and then they create starches and sugars. You should know that. Glucose, primary fuel for all metabolic processes. Energy in its chemical bonds can be used to make other molecules such as proteins, or it can be drive movement, transport, etc. Right? So really what that's saying is, when it comes to energy, when it comes to this glucose, it can either be stored as energy where you can actually burn it, right, and break it down to cause a reaction such as like gasoline in a car, or you can store it in your body, or animals' bodies, right, as in proteins or fats that then can be stored for later use. And here's just a nice graphic of it. I won't kind of go through this, but it kind of just shows you what plants need kind of in this systems diagram. Once again, we always discuss systems diagram. So look at it, observe it, understand it. All right, moving right along. Excuse me. Cellular respiration. Photosynthesis captures energy, while cellular respiration releases energy, right? That is, understand those two terms. Photosynthesis is the making of energy. Respiration, we're going to pop that word up a billion times. Through respiration is the release of energy or the loss of energy. We will speak on that again and again and again. Cellular respiration splits carbon and hydrogen atoms from sugar and recombines them with oxygen to recreate carbon dioxide and water. This is how animals get all their energy. The reason that you need to breathe is to supply this pathway with oxygen. Really what's happening is the animal eats the plant cells, right? It breaks it down. Its body utilizes the different parts of it, the sugars, to make more animal, right? But then it breaks down those molecules so enough where then the CO2 is then released. That's why we breathe out CO2 in regards to that. Okay. And then kind of here you go. Here's a kind of a diagram of that. But once again, it's, key to sum this up. I know it sounds kind of confusing, but it's really, a plant takes in sun, CO2 and water and, other nutrients, right? But we won't talk about those. It makes them into, then it combines all those CO2, sunlight, nutrients and water and combines them into starches which turn into starches and fats. Well, then the rabbit comes along, eats that, breaks those molecules back down, and then that's why we're breathing out. Sorry, I had the creepy breathe out there though, but it's breathing out CO2 because our body has broken down those fats and starches, and then we're expelling the waste that our body doesn't use, which is CO2. All right, kind of a switch and a change. Guys, to stop on that part though, we will be discussing this quite a bit more. Just know that. So I kind of gave you a summed up version of how this process occurs, but do know that we're going to go into this much more detail further on, so you'll really understand entropy, respiration, and kind of this breakdown of fats and proteins and sugars and starches. Okay. All right, so now we're kind of break it down. Now we kind of have to understand the complexities of these situations for organisms, right? And then we can kind of come back to and then put them together. But it's important to kind of know these vocabulary. But a species, really, all organisms of the same kind that are genetically similar enough to breed in nature and produce live, fertile offspring. Do I have another slide on that? No, but I think I speak on it again as well. That is key, guys. Understand what a species is in regards to biology and environmental science. All organisms of the same kind that are genetically similar enough to breed, to reproduce in nature, and produce live, keyword here, fertile offspring. So let's say two horses come together and have a baby horse. Well, then we know that baby horse then can go on, grow up, and also have offspring of its own. But there are some species, such as a donkey and a horse, that if they came together, they can actually produce young, which is called a mule. They can have a kind of, it's an in-between. So they can reproduce. But mules, unfortunately, cannot have further babies. They are not fertile. So thus, that's why a mule and a horse are two different species, because yes, they can breed, but they can actually, their offspring cannot have babies in the future. This is the same for lions and tigers. A liger, they can actually have a baby, but that baby is then unfertile or cannot have babies of its own. So key to understanding what actually dictates a species. Know that. Population. All members of species live in a given area at the same time. And that really just depends on how you dictate the given area. You can say the size of North America, or you can say the city of Chicago, right? It just depends on the species or the amount of area, then the amount of given species within that given area that you decide on. Biological community, all the populations of organisms living or interacting in a particular area. So this is you could say, the human population of Chicago, Illinois, United States is such and such. Well, if you go, the biological community of Chicago, Illinois would be the people, the cats, the dogs, maybe a few cows live in there, maybe some pigs, maybe some squirrels, rats, right? That's the biological community, the different types of organisms that live in a particular area. Ecosystems, more terms to know. Biological community, there are biotic and abiotic factors. Do know that biotic really means, living type thing. So anything in a biological community that's living. So grasses, like in this picture, grasses, frogs, deer, fish, dragonflies, those are all the biotic parts of a biological community. And they also include the abiotic, which are the things that are not alive. So the rocks, the water, the wind, the air, those are the abiotic. So an ecosystem is really all those things together, the biotic and abiotic. The physical environment includes non-living factors such as climate, water, minerals, just like I said, the abiotic, and it is difficult to define the boundaries of an ecosystem. Most ecosystems are open in that they exchange materials and organisms within other ecosystems. So, it's just saying, like an ecosystem kind of goes back to biomes, right? There's a tropical rainforest biome, which is also an ecosystem. There is no cutoff line. It's not like you go to rainforest, then desert, right? You don't take a step and you're in desert. No, they kind of meld into each other. So there is very much complex issues here. All right, and this is a great kind of a view of that really breaks down life and kind of zooms out, right? We can kind of start at the bottom, but starts on a molecular level. Then you get molecules together, which then form cells. Then you have a group of cells, maybe that form tissues and organs like your skin or heart, right? And then those group of cells then or organs come together to form an organism, right? Individual living entity, right? Then you put a lot of organisms together, then you got a population of buffalo here, right? And then community is everything living within that given area. So, where the buffalo lives, also the grasses, the birds, everything else. Then we got ecosystem, which then adds the abiotic factors such as the mountains, the wind, the rain, those factors. And then we kind of go up to the biosphere of all that is included in Earth. So a great graphic. I love this one. Kind of look at it, what it's trying to tell you. Okay. I swear, I promise, guys, I know I'm giving a lot of information off here, but just know we just have a couple more slides. Stay with me. We're almost there, okay? Now, it's important. Now we're kind of combining those two, right? So we know, like, these different ecosystems. What is an ecosystem? The populations. We also kind of learned a little bit about the type of energy use, right? Photosynthesis. Now we're kind of bringing them together to mix these two ideas, which we get food chains and food webs. Now, do know that these are different. First off, photosynthesis, which we talked about, is the base of all ecosystems. So photosynthesizers, usually plants, are called producers. So whenever we talk about the word producers, those are all the plant life, the stuff that uses photosynthesis to create energy, right? Producers. Productivity is the amount of biomass produced in a given area over a given period of time. Photosynthesis is called primary productivity because of it is basic to all other growth in an ecosystem. Really, what this means is productivity is really the amount of, the amount of plant life that forms is really what we're getting at. Productivity is the amount of plant life that forms in a given area due to how much sun and rain it gets. Productivity is how much growth occurs. That's called primary productivity. Secondary productivity is manufacture of biomass by organisms that eat the plants. So secondary productivity is really all the amount of mass of the consumers, right? You have the squirrels, maybe the birds, the buffalo, right? That is then the secondary productivity, how much mass occurs due to these other animals eating the primary productivity. Boom. We're getting through it. It's key to understand that food chains and food webs are different. First off, a food chain is linking feeding series. I call a food chain is really just I like the graphic because it's mainly a food chain really tells you the flow of energy. Write that down, everybody. Food chain is showing the flow of energy. A food web, on the other hand, is just really giving you an example of the uh, complex systems of food and eating within a given ecosystem or biological community. Most consumers have multiple food sources, right? And then we'll really kind of speak on trophic level, which is an organism's feeding status in a food web. Plants are the producer levels, while all animals are consumers. Animals that eat plants are primary consumers, while animals that eat other animals are secondary and tertiary consumers. Some animals called omnivores eat both plants and animals. And finally, there are organisms that recycle dead bodies and remove waste. We'll get into that right here kind of thing, right? This is a nice little graphic to kind of sum up that last little slide. This is a food chain. This would show the flow of energy, but it gives kind of those ideas. So we have first, the sun's energy goes into the producers. So kind of giving this example again. But producers are all the plants or photosynthetic plants, bacteria, algae, phytoplankton fit into this producing system. Then who eats that are the primary consumers, the herbivores, the animals that eat just plants. Those are the primary consumers. Well, then we have next level is secondary consumers. Those are the carnivores or sometimes omnivores that eat these smaller animals or big animals that eat just plants. And then we can go on to a fourth and final level, which are tertiary consumers or the top apex predators of a given environment. These are the wolves, the bears, the polar bears, the great white sharks kind of exist are the tertiary consumers. Do you know that it doesn't go above this? Why don't we have a fifth level? We'll speak on that later, but just kind of keep that in your mind. And then we do have consumers that feed on all levels. These are the parasites, scavengers, decomposers. So they kind of just are the breakdown type of animals, right? So this is a nice graphic to really show you this last slide in a much more understanding version of it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So organisms can be identified by the type of food they consume as well, right? So we have herbivores, which are plants. They eat just plants, and those example of that would be deer. We have carnivores that eat just meat, and those would be wolves. We have omnivores that eat plants and meat, and those could be bears, fit in this, raccoons, rats kind of fit in that category. We have scavengers, which they may eat broken down carcasses or dead plant life. Or crows would kind of fit into this category, or vultures. We have detrivores, which eat debris, so rotting parts of like trees and branches and leaves. That's ants. And then we have decomposers, which are kind of bacteria, but they can eat everything. They just break down anything that kind of dies in a system. So do you know these? We won't go over them in much detail, but they will pop up here and there on a quiz. Okay. And finally, guys, this is your last slide. Hopefully you got through it. Good job if you did. This is a great example of a food web. I do want to stress the difference. This is a food web, so showing the complexities and differences in the food chain of what different animals eat, right? Compare this to a food chain, which is showing you more a direct domino effect of where energy goes through a food system. Okay, so know the difference between this and a food web. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I'm under the 30-minute mark. Thank you very much for watching. I hope if you have any questions, we're going to meet in class on Monday. Please feel free to write down any questions you may have and ask me then, okay? Take care. See you soon. Bye.